Hello everybody. These benchmarks are finally here for Cyberpunk 2077. Nvidia recently released graphs showcasing Cyberpunk 2077 performance on the modern graphics cards. And as we can see, the performance isn't what everybody was expecting it to be, as the 3090 can't even achieve 60 FPS using DLSS in the performance mode at the Ultra setting with ray tracing on Ultra as well. And I'll put a chart up on the screen. As we can see, the performance only improved about 9% since the preview build, and this is not what everybody was expecting, including myself. I was thinking it was going to be more 10 to 15%. So being under 10%, it's going to be disappointing for a lot of people. And as we can tell, I have an RTX 3070, so I'll be getting around the same FPS as the 2080 Ti. And for me, I don't personally play at 4K. I usually play at 1440p or even 1080p, but usually 1440p. So I'll probably turn down a couple settings to get this game running at 60 FPS. I don't know if I'll turn down some of the ray trace shadows maybe, or some of the shadow map quality. But I'll be turning down some of the settings to make sure my game runs at 60 FPS. And as we can see here are the initial settings screenshots I've been able to capture from some gameplay videos on YouTube. And as we can tell, we have a plethora of graphics options to choose from. In this initial video screen, we can limit the FPS, we can enable or disable VSync, we can change the window mode, the resolution, and enable or disable HDR for people who have OLED screens or nice HDR monitors and TVs. We also have gamma correction, which is nice as well. As you can see here, we have the graphic settings. So a lot of people are going to be using the quick presets if they don't know what a lot of these settings mean. And the quick preset they have selected, from what I can tell, is Ray Tracing Ultra. So this is going to max out every single setting in the basic and advanced settings categories on this game. As you can tell, for basic, we have an FOV slider, which is awesome. I mean, I personally do not like games that do not have an FOV slider because I like playing around in 90 to 100. Field of view depending on the game and how big the hand view model is in front of your face. You can enable or disable film grain, which is really nice. I personally turn film grain off as I don't feel like it adds that much quality when your screen's fuzzy. You also have chromatic aberration, so that's a lot of the rainbowy effect around objects. I personally am probably going to turn that off depending on how strong that effect is. And then we have depth of field, lens flare, and motion blur settings. For the advanced settings, I'm really glad we have the advanced settings and that they actually dove in and added a lot of settings we can personalize. Because the feature that stuck out to me was improved facial lighting geometry. I thought that was really cool because you're able to essentially turn on or off high poly character models, from what it seems. I'm pretty sure that this enables more shadowing and subsurface scattering around the face. I mean, there is a setting for subsurface scattering that we'll be looking at in a minute as well, but I feel like it's pretty nice to have that option. And then we have the shadow mesh and shadow quality, which is really nice because you can optimize the clarity of the shadows as well as the resolution of the shadows, which I thought was a good added setting to this game. And as you can see here, we have a lot more settings here. We have the Cascade Shadows range, Cascade Shadows resolution, so you can change how many light sources are hitting your objects and producing shadows. You can also change the distance shadows, which I believe is a really nice setting, because I believe turning that down will give you a couple more FPS, and it won't really decrease quality that much. You can change down your fog resolution, which is awesome because fog is an alpha effect on a graphics card, so that's going to be a pretty heavy setting to run, at least from previous games. So I'll probably be turning that on to on my 3070. You also have volumetric cloud quality. I'll probably be turning that down a little bit as well. And then we have decals, which probably won't make a huge difference to leave that a lower ultra, maybe 1 to 2 FPS. And then we have screen space reflections quality. I'm sure that they're using a hybrid RTX reflection system on this game, so they'll be using screen space combined with RTX reflections. So screen space reflections for probably far objects and close objects will be using ray tracing. Subsurface scattering quality is how the light affects skin, probably. So I'll probably be keeping that on medium or high just because it'll make the character models look a lot better. And then we have ambient occlusion, which is small shadows on objects, essentially. I'll probably be running that medium or high. Then we have color precision, which probably won't even make that big of a difference, but we'll see when people release benchmark videos if that makes a difference or not. Mirror quality, personally, I don't look at mirrors that much. I'll probably leave that on medium. I could leave it on high depending on how that's going to run. And then we have the level of detail, which me personally, that's going to be the biggest setting. If you turn that setting down, you're probably going to get a couple more FPS from that setting alone. And then for the ray tracing settings, as you can see, this game uses ray trace reflections, shadows, and lighting. And I believe I'll be playing around with those. I might turn off ray trace shadows on an RTX 3070, as me personally, lighting and reflections are going to make a bigger difference to the game's quality. I mean, it could be the other way around. Maybe the ray trace shadows are really noticeable, and turning off reflections and keeping ray trace shadows on will make a bigger difference in game quality. What's nice is there's resolution scaling on this game, and there's dynamic fidelity FX contrast adaptive sharpening, which can be run on AMD and Nvidia cards. So all the cards without tensor cores that support DLSS, I believe will be able to run these settings. Let me know down in the description below if you feel like there are some cards that can't run these Fidelity FX settings. But I believe, yeah, if you don't have a DLSS supported card, you can run the game at a lower resolution and run these dynamic contrast adaptive sharpening, and that will make your game look a little bit clearer at lower resolutions. So if you're running this on a 1060, for example, overall, I feel like CD Projekt Red gave us a lot of settings. I mean, this is a lot more settings to this game than I expected. Hopefully we're able to dig in the configuration files and even fine-tune the settings even more, such as like population density, like we could do in Grand Theft Auto 5, and also ray march resolution, number of bounces for ray trace settings. So people can create their own kind of optimized, best-looking graphic settings. It's almost like the community can optimize the game themselves to make it look the best and run the best. Now, in the next slides here, I will cover a lot of the other NVIDIA settings. Here we have the DLSS quality mode on 1440p, and this is what I'll be running. I will probably be running this on the DLSS quality mode with ultra graphics and ultra ray tracing. I'll probably fine tune some of those sub settings a little bit that I just covered previously to try to get around 60 FPS, probably mostly turning down shadows, fog resolution, just turning off smaller things like shadow quality and shadow distance. But yeah, it's pretty impressive. I mean, a 3060 Ti can get 44 FPS at DLSS quality mode. So that was pretty cool. I mean, that's a $400 graphics card, and if you optimize this game, you can run it with ray tracing and ultra graphics basically maxed out at 2K resolution. I don't know why they didn't add the RTX 2060 to this graph, but I believe that. I mean, if you're running this in DLSS at 1080p, quality mode on RTX 2060, you're probably going to get around 30 to 40 FPS. There's a performance mode you can run, but again, that's going to run at under 720p, so it may not have the best clarity. But I believe a lot of people will be running this game at DLSS performance mode on an RTX 2060 to achieve over 40 or so FPS.